Folarin. I'm so sorry that I have to start out by apologizing for coming on late. It was absolutely unavoidable, believe us. If it could have been avoided, it would have been. So we don't have any more time, but to quickly get into it. And we're going to be looking this morning at the flooding in northern Nigeria. It's been a very, very serious flooding. And we are looking at a situation where reportedly up to 49 people have been killed and over 41,000 have been displaced. We have an expert and we have an environmental expert with us, well known to us, Mr. Desmond Majakodumi, environmentalist, chairman, Lekki State Urban Forest and Agriculture Animal Shelter Initiative. Good morning to you, Mr. Majakodumi. Thank you very much for your patience.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to do.
Yes. Okay. I always admire your backdrop. It does seem as if you are in some sort of a monsoon forest. Thank you very much. And we'll be joined later on by an agric expert, agric business analyst, Dr. Olukayode Oyeleye later on. But now we have Mr. Majakodumi, Mr. Desmond Majakodumi. Now, tough news, very worrying news, alarming news, but can it be said that it wasn't expected? I'm talking about the floods now that have ravaged Jigawa, Adamawa, and Taraba states. So serious that, according to reports, up to 49 people have been reported killed and 41,000 displaced. And you know, usually these numbers tend to be, I mean, you have people on ground who will say that it's a bit more than that, but these are the official numbers that we have. Was this unexpected?
Had been warned that this would be likely. And our hearts really, really go out to the people that were affected by the flood. As you said, it's probably a lot more fatalities, but it's difficult to actually know the exact numbers when you have these type of major problems. We have been warned over the years, not just from our own meteorological organization, who I must say have been very efficient and have been very effective in getting out advance warnings. We have been warned, but also by the World Meteorological Organization, who has said that as a direct result of this global warming that is causing climate change, we can anticipate far heavier rainfall. In fact, the language that they now refer to some of these rainstorms is no longer a rainstorm. They call it a rain bomb, because you will have maybe 1 month's rain, sometimes just 2 weeks' rain falling in half a day. And this will definitely overwhelm whatever natural system, whatever man-made system has been put in place to deal with the excessive water from the rain. And this is what is happening. It's a direct...
Okay, and I wonder the extent to which we can prepare for these things. According to news reports, in 2022, we had what was referred to then as the Nigeria's worst floods in more than a decade, because that particular incident had taken out, you know, we'd lost about 600 people to that particular flood, that they were killed. And now, here we are in 2024, we're having this kind of a thing. As you said, it's gone beyond these storms now. They're now seen as a sort of a rain bomb. Because, is this because of the rain? Because really we're in the middle of the season and the peak of the season now. Is it that it's so fast that the banks overflow and then flow onto land and cause the devastation? Is it that, or is there more to it?
It is definitely that partly, but it's a combination of things. And it's basically just a manifestation of our just taking nature for granted over the centuries and centuries. When our population has not been as large as what it is now, it's a booming population, far more demand on the resources that nature has to offer, which incidentally are our life-giving resources. But also with the advancement of technology, and we are able to make more of an impact. So it's a combination. One of the things that is also driving it is the massive deforestation, especially on the river banks in those areas, because the plants there, especially the trees, but generally the plants, they play such an important role with their root zone. You know, the roots are intertwined, and those roots help to stabilize the soil. Those roots help to prevent erosion. So we've decimated a lot of those riverbank areas and even the upland areas, and now we're getting erosion. So more sand is coming into the rivers, into the streams, and it's raising the level of the river bed. So its capacity even to carry more water has been greatly reduced. So it's a combination. You're having more water, and then the ability for the natural system to evacuate the water have been reduced because we've been causing terrible damage to the vegetable trees and so on. And this is really a wake-up call. It's an alarm call to us as Nigerians and to humanity generally, that you cannot take nature for granted, that we must have reverence for the miracles of nature. System. Those trees are there, they look good, they're giving us food, they're giving us medicine, they're giving us far more than that. They're stabilizing the soil. They actually conveyors, even for the water vapor, they absorb a lot of the water as well. So when the rain falls heavily, the trees absorb a lot of that water, then emit it more slowly as vapor, in order that the rain can be passed on to another location. And we've been taking these things far too much for granted. But now with the amount of technology that we have available, we have to respect it a lot more.
You know, as you explained, climate change has a lot to do with this, but one is a bit worried because of the implications for agriculture and especially food security. Are we then, I mean, that is countries that are affected by this phenomenon, are we then like sitting ducks? Is it that we can't prepare? Because I was just talking about the records show that 2022 was the largest flooding event that we've had in 10 years as of 2022. Thank God this is less, but still, it's very painful. If 600 people were killed that time, was it 600 or 60? And here we are talking about 49 being killed. It's still a catastrophe. Is there nothing that could have been done by way of preparation, since we knew that this is the kind of habit? I mean, is dredging an option, or just what, apart from prayer?
This is very, very, very good. Definitely, the prayer will help, especially if we take the scriptures very, very seriously. And the scriptures are clear. There's no ambiguity about it, that we are here as caretakers. We are here to replenish the earth. We are here as stewards of creation, which we're not doing a very good job at all. We're not serving nature well at all. We're abusing her. We're taking tremendous advantage of her. However, in all fairness, there has been some moves recently to ensure that we can at least adapt to these heavier rains, and to ensure that they don't have as much negative effect. And dredging is definitely part of it, but also, as we referred to earlier, is tackling the problem itself. Because why are you having to dredge? You're having to dredge because there's erosion. Why is there erosion? Because of the decimation of the vegetable life. You see, we have reserve areas in our dear country. Those areas are supposed to be kept pristine. There's not supposed to be any deforestation in there. If you take wood out of those areas, it's because the tree has died and you're now removing the wood, or because it's a very, very old tree and you know that its time has come and there's a lot of replacement. But guess what? We're not protecting a lot of these forest areas. And this is very, very alarming, that we can actually designate these places for protection and it's not happening. So this needs to be looked into very urgently. And I do believe I heard that there has been a move to increase the amount of forest rangers by the federal government. If I heard correctly, then I'm very, very happy to hear this. And I just hope and I pray that these forest rangers are encouraged to do the right job. And again, you mentioned the food security aspect of it. This is another terrible blow. This is one of the consequences that we're going to get if we allow this to be happening too much, because we are a rain-fed agricultural nation generally. Rain-fed, that is, we rely on our seasons. But the seasons are getting erratic. A classic example is here we are in Lagos for the August break. The August break started in July, and now we're in September, and the August break is still breaking. It's a long break. This is quite unprecedented. We haven't seen this type of aberration in terms of the break for a long, long time. And again, it's one of the symptoms of this global warming, one of the symptoms of the damage that we're causing to the environment. So things that can be done, massive amounts of tree planting, massive amounts. Particularly the indigenous trees in those particular areas, and then protect the trees. Again, there seems to be some good moves in that direction, but it's not enough. The damage that has been done cannot be cured just with it's like you have a big slash on your arm or your leg, and then you put band-aid, you put those small plaster there. You need a lot more. You need to stitch it up. You need to look after it. You need to ensure that it heals properly. And this is what needs to be done. Large amounts of resources must be deployed to this. Otherwise, it's going to impact so negatively on our food supply system. Again, it's a wake-up call that we need to fast-track ourselves into irrigated agriculture. We need to really, really increase our irrigation capacities, so that if there is a lack of rain, because you see, this is the interesting thing that's happening. In some parts of our country, we're having these rain bonds. In other parts, drought, no rain at all. Like I said, even parts of where we are in Lagos, is very, very little rain has fallen, despite earlier in the year a lot of rain fell. So we need to start adapting to this. The reality is that global warming is here, it's causing climate change, and the climate change is going to get worse before it gets better. This is a global problem, which we, as Nigerians, as Africans even, did not contribute that much to the problem.
Yeah.
But now we are in it.
Yeah.
We're all affected by it.
Exactly. Okay. Tell you what, Mr. Majikoudumi, we'll take a quick break now. Please stay with us. We'll be right back. We'll continue with this conversation and take calls as they come in from our viewers. Stay with us, please.
Information is power.
Okay, welcome back, and thank you for staying with us. Our guest, we still have with us Mr. Majikoudumi, Mr. Desmond Majikoudumi, environmentalist, and we've since been joined by our other expert, Dr. Olukayode Oyeleye. He's an agribusiness analyst. Fine morning to you, Dr. Oyeleye. So we've been talking, as you, thank you, sir. You've been talking, as you know, about the crisis. That's what I could call it, because by the time we've lost 49 killed, and that could be a conservative estimate, and about 41,000 people displaced in the 3 states of Jigawa, Adamawa, and Taraba, we know that we have a crisis on our hands. And of course, we were just looking into the effect that this will have on food security. A lot of agriculture is going to be affected by this. We are complaining that food is expensive, and one of the reasons for that is because we don't have enough of it. And now this can hardly, make those matters better. Well, give me an assessment, Dr. Olukade Oyeleye. Give me your assessment on the impact that this would have on agriculture in those areas.
Okay, predictably, the idea of environmental crisis that we have in our hands is a pointer to the fact that there is going to be a greater level of food crisis in this country. The ones being addressed hitherto was orchestrated by economic situation, but now this one is purely environmental and has to do with climate. The farmers who had ventured into farming this year, many of them are already counting their losses, especially because of crop failures on the field within the period of the extended dry spell. And now, to compound the matter, comes flooding in those states mentioned. And from the forecast, there will still be many more states involved in the months ahead. And we're only hoping and praying that the impact will be minimal. But that is not to say that it's not going to negatively affect food output this year. And so if there has been any forecast as to the harvest expected this year, I think those who had probably done such forecasts should begin to downgrade their forecast now, because many products on the farm will be negatively affected. The harvests will be reduced, and a lot of crops will go into waste, especially those that would be inundated by the deluge, in the various states that are affected or that are going to be affected also in weeks ahead. So definitely the prospect is grim, and I think so much more needs to be done at the level of the government, trying to ensure that we find a way of, well, not preventing the flood, because it will come, but mitigating, the impact of the flood. Those are the kinds of things that we should begin to look at now. From observations so far, earlier in the year, many farmers actually lost their crops, especially those who planted with the first set of rains. And then when the dry spell that followed came, they had to replant again. And then, of course, the second dry spell followed, which I think had made a mess of what many people had planted. Unfortunately, I don't know if any of these farmers so affected has any backup, like insurance or like any other source, through which you'll be able to replenish either their planting materials against probably dry season if they want to, or maybe against next year. So for the product of harvest going into the market, a lot will be affected, and that is negative. And then, of course, prices of food will go higher. And the reason is very simple. Apart from the competition for the reduced quantum of food that is going to be produced at the end of the year, there will still be a lot of these finding their ways outside the country as usual, because there are so many informal channels through which food items get out of this country to neighboring countries. And that is very difficult to stop, especially because of the economic factors, the factors of demand and supply.
Wow.
So I think towards the end of this year and early next year, the impact of this food shortage will begin to be felt very seriously.
Okay. Let me bring on Ada in Jos. Good morning, Ada.
Yori, look at your day. As I'm coming from Jos, Plateau State. This flooding thing, we're talking the issue. For me, since it has been there and it's always a perennial thing, why can't we embrace irrigation farming, the all year round farming. So that will help to be able to put in some plants during the dry season and control it and harvest them before the rain starts coming, you know. That will help. But this idea of waiting for when the rain comes, then we will farm, we should move away from that. Nigeria, I think, as the giants of Africa, I think we have surpassed that for now, you know. So each time we keep on talking about the same thing, and we're not doing much. And then the dam, both of the major rivers, why can't it be dredged? So that will help, you know, accommodate some of these water. And then people, you know, it's true that people are sensitized and everything, but when people are hungry, I start telling them of how to, judge the environment. They won't listen. That's the problem. So they block everywhere, you know, and then it now leads to flooding, which affects the farm products. And then the seedlings. When I checked last time, I learned that there are certain crops that have flood resistance ability or water capacity. So we can go that way, you know. Let the government do something, right from the local government to the state government, do something about it, you know, to improve it. Not every time we're talking about the same thing. And the same thing occurs. Then they now come and be giving farmers palliatives that cannot even meet them anyway. Fertilizer, they won't even give them on time and all that. So I think we have to change the scenario. All the same, let's not jump Nigeria.
Thank you very much for calling in, Ada. Okay, let me stay with you on this one because it's agricultural, Dr. Oyele. She threw up a number of suggestions in there. I'm sure this would have been on the minds of all, you know, players in the sector. Go ahead, give me your commentary on what she said.
In her suggestions is irrigation. And I think it makes a whole lot of sense, really, having program of irrigation in this country. We have a whole ministry of water resources whose function primarily has to do with things like this. And our River Basin Development Authority in various parts of the country, they've gone moribund, and they need to be revived. As we speak, I think the only River Basin Development Authority that could be reckoned as, you know, doing any modicum of activity presently would likely be the Hadeja Jamari River Basin Authority, and that is in the north. The rest, they've gone moribund, like I said. And I think it is the responsibility of government, given all the quantum of funds going into this ministry, to actually revive the River Basin Development Authority in various parts of the country. And very close to us here, we have the Ogun River Basin Development Authority. And the last time I visited the Onya Dam, I mean, I marvel at the kind of, you know, what we have that we're not making use of. And then again, sometimes not too long ago, I also visited, well, some years back actually, I visited the Okere Dam that is very close to Iseyin. I mean, these are the kinds of facilities that are just there and the government is not making use of. And okay. So it is in the east, so it is in various other parts of the northern part of Nigeria. And so, yes, quite clearly, we can produce quite a lot of food through irrigation, especially during the dry season. Yeah. And so it is actually the function of the government to work and plan towards this and mobilize the farmers and the planting materials and other agro inputs, you know, to this end. And we can't just continue to rely on rain-fed agriculture. It doesn't portray us as a serious nation.
Okay, let me bring on
also as having
Dr. Oyele, sorry to interrupt you. Mr. George has been on the line and has been waiting to join the conversation. Good morning to you, Mr. George. Thank you for holding on.
Yeah, good morning, Uncle Yori, and good morning to the two guests.
Yes.
Uncle Yori, if we want to solve a problem, we must first address the cause. The environmental issues we're having as mankind is because of the war we humans have waged against nature. Mr. Manjeko to me is very right by his diagnosis of the matter. When you see a person, for example, you want to build, you buy a plot of land and you want to develop it for your house, the first thing you do is to destroy all the trees and the plants on that slope. In this country, in the many parts of this country I've traveled to, the only place I've seen that people live with nature. It's a town called Yori in Anambra State. That place, people, you see that they build houses and around nature. They don't just pull down all the trees and then the place looks like a desert before you build your structures. This is one of the reasons why the flood system has come. This is one other reason why we are now talking about climate change. We are the ones manufacturing war machines, gas flaring, and all the rest. And when the repercussion is coming, we say nature is fighting us. We are the ones fighting nature. All those things that chemical weapons that we are manufacturing, they react on the ozone layer. And when the ozone layer is broken or damaged, you see the effect of the sun will be, on us on Earth will be more than what's designed. And these things have effects. So I think the solution, first of all, lies in our attitude to nature. What we are seeing now is like a reaction from nature. If there is an action, there's always a reaction. So if we don't want the nature of reaction we are getting, we should first of all address the actions we are taking. Our attitude to nature is poor and wrong, and that's where we should start from. All these other recommendations, do this or do that, in order that we might have food and we might have, if we don't address the cause, those other solutions will be cosmetic and we will not get there. Thank you.
Thank you very much for calling in, Mr. George. And let me bring that straight to Mr. Madia Kodumi. The part that we play, I know that people like your good self have been in the forefront of educating on the role of the citizenry in terms of protecting the planet. But for some reason, I don't know, you will be in a better position to assess. I don't know the extent to which these things have been taken serious. I was delighted when the caller said that of all his travels in Nnewi, they sort of work with nature as opposed to wiping out nature because I have my project, design, whatever it is to put on it. So the first thing to do is wipe it out and then begin. What's your assessment of the understanding that we have? Because luckily the world has become a village now. You see reports from other places where children in primary school are so respectful of nature simply because they are being taught, and no effort is thought to be so little. So this little primary school girl is going to become an engineer tomorrow, but she's known from now that there is no gain to be got from, disrespecting nature, and indeed, worse than disrespecting, harming nature. I don't know, how do we in Nigeria compare with those people who love the world and who are hugging trees in the West to show their love? I'm not sure, say, that craze don't reach us yet, to be loving nature enough to be hugging trees and putting ourselves in front of any bulldozer that wants to fell a tree because you are harming our environment. What's our attitude to protecting our nature, our environment?
Yeah, it's just very, very fortuitous that the last caller has verified this, and also Dr. Aloye, he referred to it, because we're dealing with one of the most fundamental laws of the cosmos, and that is the law that for every action, there is a reaction. In the physical, it is usually expressed as an equal and opposite. In the metaphysical, it is a reaction. And nature is now showing humanity that you're doing this, you're waging war against me, the mighty, incredible, miraculous force of nature. I have to react. I have no other option but to react to your actions. And this is exactly what is going on. But it's a big, big wake-up call for us. Because if we think it is bad now, the way the thing is going, as I think I mentioned some months ago, what the Secretary General of the United Nations had said, he said, it's no longer a crisis. Because in 2015, all the world leaders got together and they agreed and they ratified agreement. Oh, we're going to stop the pollution. We're going to reduce it very drastically. by 2022, despite agreeing to reduce particularly the CO2 pollution, which is the major cause of the global warming. It had never been so high. And that's why 2023 was the hottest year ever recorded by humanity. And that raises a huge question mark, that how could we, as human beings, recognizing that there is this problem, and we still, even after agreeing to resolve the problem, we continue pushing. And one of the indications is that, our whole socio-economic system has actually got a little bit distorted, whereby we put profits ahead of people, ahead of planet. Okay? So the money is the major factor. We've got to make the profit. We've got to make the profit no matter what. We've got to make the profit. Even hundreds of people are dying, but the armed robber does the same thing. And Dr. Yori, he referred to what needs to happen also with the decision makers. They need to know that they are tied down to these laws. They are in the Bible. It's called law of retribution. It's there in the Quran. The Holy Quran is there. Kifara. It's there as karma. In the Buddhist literature, it is there. And if you are there in a position to make decisions that are going to impact upon people, you better make sure, for your own sake and for the sake and the peace of your soul, that those decisions are made good and well.
Okay. Well, Mazio Korafo in Arochukwu, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, sir. Good morning again.
Yes.
When you talk about this issue, I'm talking about political system. You see, presently, right now in Nigeria, the air are polluted, water is polluted, gas and waste are polluted. Now, the environment we find ourselves today is something that we human beings, in those 80s and 70s, we neglected what we're supposed to do at that rate. Right now look at the farmland we are facing. Look at how flood is ravaging the country. What do we do? Now, do you know that all this issue of explosion, just destruction of those things in the Niger Delta, the pollution there, the ozone layers have been created. Ask yourself, you see that you have areas that don't normally have what we call cold weather. They are having cold weather now, which for the past 40 years, they have never experienced cold weather. It's because the ozone layers have already been polluted, because where those things it cannot take place because of what we are having today. Now look at the farmland we have. You know, the farmland itself has been polluted because of this excess fertilizer we are using. Go to the market today and buy any produce you get from the market. Take it home and keep it. I bet you within 48 hours, those things are rotten, because the soil texture we have right now is no longer good as it used to be when we normally have natural manure in terms of farming. That is why we are having a sort of situation that is very, very cancerous and hazardous to human beings. So what do we do? You see, if you look at the country that they say that they planted 1 million trees in 1 week. Now, some states have started planting trees. How many people have embarked on that in order to make the environment conducive in terms of when you sit down and the air that coming from those plants, you enjoy it, not the question of weather. Now, as a human being, if you stay in an air-conditioned office, air-conditioned car, air-conditioner, what I say, you are having another problem into your own system because you don't have natural air. That is the issue we are facing. That is a lot of ailments, sickness are so ravaging the country presently. We should go back to the basics and face the right of life. When you talk about eating good food, how many Nigerians can eat good food? Balance diet.
Well, thank you very much for holding on and indeed for your contribution. We've run out of time now, but let me thank Mr. Desmond Majekodumi, environmentalist and chairman of the Lekki State Urban Forest and Animal Shelter Initiative. I want to thank you very much, sir, as always, for coming in and coming on and enlightening us. And also Dr. Olukayode Oyeleye, Agric business and analyst. Thank you very much, sir. This is a subject that I'm sure we're going to return to, unfortunately. But in the meantime, thank you very much for coming on. And let me just use this opportunity to say that we're linking on to an external broadcast